Hello and welcome to Performance Check. My name is Rob and I'm back once again. I've done two. This is my second live stream of the day. Well, actually, fourth if you're counting the misery that I went through to get my initial live stream working. Yeah, I'll probably post this tomorrow and the one that I did earlier later on this evening. But I've just been in a really thoughtful mood about creating content for you guys to watch, and also just thinking a lot about running games and stuff. It's been pretty good. It's been a really nice day today. Like you could probably see the sunshine beaming, reflecting off my glasses. Uh, um, but yeah, so right now I want to talk to you guys about dueling. This is in response to Lloyd's live stream yesterday, I think it was, regarding dueling in role-playing games. The topic itself fascinates me. I absolutely adore the concept of dueling. I've spoken about this a number of times. In my sort of profession, I've always sought out like projects that involve stage combat, and I've often marvelled in cinema and on stage, like when there's like a really proficient, well done fight with the right stakes and the right meaning behind it. And I think that that can be equally effective as a thing in role playing games. There's often quite a lot of discussion throughout the community regarding the spotlight, where you take the time as a DM to allow a particular player to shine. And I think a duel is perfect for that. And this is an incredibly tense and dangerous situation. Because it's one-on-one. You don't have other party members to, back you up. Or you might have them waiting in the background, but generally speaking, I think it would be the most effective when, it's one-on-one and whoever, is triumphant is the one that takes the win. Now, there are many forms of dueling, and there have been many forms of dueling throughout history, predominantly the two that are the most famous is the sword fighting, with various cultures, obviously with different swords, different types of swords, and then there's gun fighting as well, a pistol duel. Although I was just thinking about, wouldn't it be hilarious if there was like a machine gun duel or a rocket launcher duel? That would be pretty interesting. Probably no. Maybe no one would walk away from a rocket launcher duel, but interesting nonetheless. But I wanted to talk today to have a conversation with you guys to ask about, have you guys ever included a duel in a game that you've run, or have you as a player been involved in a duel? I have as a player been involved in a duel and have DM'd a few duels in my time. And I find them to be narratively a really, really good tool to have in your toolbox. Now, obviously, throughout history, the duel was used, as Lloyd covered in his stream. You should go and check it out. He may have put it onto his YouTube channel, or it may just be in the feed on Absolute Tabletop. You'll be able to find it. But Lloyd mentioned about the historical uses of the duel. How it would be used to settle disputes, and you put your money where your mouth is, and you would, if someone had slighted you, you challenge them to a duel. And a lot of the time, it wouldn't be to the death. It would just be to ensure that, someone receives satisfaction. Obviously, sometimes there would be duels to the death. And I think Lloyd even mentioned there is a particularly good film, which I have also seen, called The Duelists. Ridley Scott's first venture into film with Harvey Keitel. Really, really amazing duels in that. But there's obviously a lot of examples of great duels to be found in cinema. Princess Bride being arguably the most impressively choreographed fight, because it is all based on a number of traditional techniques that can be found. They give them fantasy names in it. I can't remember for the life of me what some of the techniques they use are called, but just a really technically strong duel. And then you've got the really emotionally strong duels that can be found in the original Star Wars trilogy and The Force Awakens. I deliberately do not include the prequel duels. But there we go. But you obviously see my point. These are popular methods of resolving differences between characters. And I want to talk today about how you can pull off particularly effective duels in your game. But right now I'm going to look into the comments. I will say, for those who wish to comment in this stream, but if you'd seen my stream last time, I discovered, again, when I'm doing a live stream, that if your comments are too long, then after a while, I can't see them for some reason. It doesn't let me see the rest of the comments. So try and make your your things in multiple posts, maybe, or short messages, maybe 3 lines long. We'll see how we go. Anyway, going to the top. Marquis says, no, I want to talk to you about dueling. Dude, fire away, man. I wait to hear your thoughts. As ever, intrigued by what you have to add to the conversation. Archie says, mechas have rocket duels. That is very correct. There are some very impressive mech duels in Evangelion. That is the only mech anime I've ever watched. And there's some pretty impressive fights in that, so you're absolutely right. Monkey says, I have run only one once, though I have plans to run more. In The Rise of Tiamat, Horde of the Dragon Queen, the first chapter ends at a one-on duel between, and see, that is a prime example. Marquis's comment has just been cut off, and I can't read it. There isn't any see more option or anything, so I do apologise, but I do know the fight that I think you mean. There is a Dragonborn that shows up, I believe, that demands to duel one of the players. Yeah, it's a pretty good example. And I think it's pretty badass. Like, if you have like your villain show up and just say, you and me right now, let's go. Like, I think you'll be hard pressed to find players that would back out of that kind of situation. I think they'd say, yeah, let's do it. And it's also quite a good way to show how immensely powerful a character is by pitting them against just one person as well. So it works both as for players to show off their characters, but it also works for a DM to show off their characters as well in duels and things. Archie says, dueling has a strong basis in honor and codes and systems. Absolutely. Used to resolve disputes to a legal level. In terms of the nobility throughout history, like, and if you look to the samurai as well, it's the same. Like, it was deemed as a fair way to resolve things, and it did indeed come down to protecting one's honor as well. If you were to if you lost the duel, your honor would still be intact. But if you denied a duel, then your honor may be called into question. And you'd be called a coward and a knave. Scott Huston says, Tyler had a great high noon gunfight in one of his Western games with DM Alan and his NPC brother. Yeah, well, that's again another example, isn't it? The Western, the pistols at noon kind of deal, like who's quickest on the draw. And I think that kind of that's something that I want to talk about. Actually, I'll go into that now. A really cool way of doing a duel would be I have a character example to give you. For example, you've seen it in samurai films where two warriors will stand there and they will both have hands upon their hilts, but they will have not drawn their blades. And there will be a massively long pause, and this was taken from Japanese cinema and put into Westerns, where people would just stand there staring at each other as the tension builds and builds and builds and builds, good, the bad, and the ugly stuff. And then at that moment, like, there's a split second, bam, and then someone either draws a pistol or draws their sword, and it's over in a second. And that can be arguably more satisfying than a drawn-out fight. You can imagine running that as a DM. You could ask your players, you could say to your players, time almost stands still. as you fall into rapt concentration, staring down at your opponent. In the milliseconds that take place before you draw your blade, what goes through your mind? And instead of making it a combat, you're actually making it a social, emotional role-playing moment where the character can think about what has led them up to this moment. I know I've had a similar talk about this on a live stream before, where Chris Wilhelm mentioned to me it was before a game. There is a system, I can't remember the system. Maybe he'll watch this later and be able to put it into the comments. But there is a system where it's a role-playing game where two people are standing in a field preparing to fight, and then you then role-play the events that lead up to that moment, which I think is a really cool thing. So you could sort of take that essence and insert it into your role-playing game regardless. Sorry, I just realised Scott was actually continuing with his comments regarding Tyler's game with the roll at high noon, the duel at high noon rather. It came down to a perception roll, intimidation roll, and dex roll for attack, all against each other. One shot kill. Alan won. It was epic. That's a really good way of doing it. There have been ways that I've done it. Like, I've tried a few different ways of how you mechanically resolve a duel. Sometimes I've just done it as opposed attack rolls. So whoever has the more competent attack is the one that is able to... when I do it narratively, I do it as opposed attack rolls. Whoever has the superior roll gets to describe what happens next in the fight to their advantage. And you keep going and going and going, so you ignore hit points entirely. Like, it's all down to skill. Like, it's not about like who is hitting who the most and who's taking off the most HP. It's about who is dictating what's happening in this fight. You know, it is more to do with strategy than it is about just merely attacking someone. It's about how much energy you're saving. You know, some duels could go on for hours and hours and hours, you know, in a sword fight. So it's that as well. And again, that gives you a great... I'm back. That was really weird. I don't understand. It says connection is weak. My router is there. That is it. What is going on with my streams today? Apologies. What I'm saying is that by dictating who controls the role-playing at that moment is then dictating who is actually being the better fighter in that moment. And that's another great way. I suggest those people who were listening take note of what Scott was telling us there about that mechanical way of dealing with a gunfight, like a fire from the hip kind of moment in a Western. Great stuff. Yeah, that's one way of doing it. I mean, and I think it's quite a cool thing to have as a way to deal with disputes in a role-playing game. Like, I've seen it where I've been in games where players themselves will have disagreements about where the party should go, or what they should be doing. And so, to decide how they're going to, proceed, they then have a PvP. They state that, we're not going to go lethal, but we're going to have a PvP to decide who wins, and then whoever wins gets to make the decision, which I think is pretty cool. Like, it's almost like a friendly kind of scuffle, as it were, to see who should make the decision. Sometimes it's about rivalries. I mean, it's good sometimes when there are character rivalries within the party where that comes to a head all of a sudden, and you find that there is a one-on-one duel happening. One campaign that I ran, and this is a long while back when I was at university, introducing my friends at uni to D&D, and this was a game that I was running for two people. And my friend Matt, who plays Theodrex of Hemlon, Theodrex is a star of my Lore Drop series, goes up against my other friend Mike's character called Sayrag, the monk. Where the monk had basically been brainwashed by a god as the monk was having a crisis of faith, And I won't go into it because I actually plan on doing a lore drop about this particular event. But basically, it was a duel to decide the fate of an entire city. So it can go from a friendly dispute to massive stakes, where entire like hundreds of people's lives are at stake on just one fight between two people. And it's really tense. Like, it's the tensest thing you can do in any of your role-playing games, especially when it's between two players as well, because you as a DM don't know who's going to win, unless, of course, one player is particularly better at fighting the other. Sorry, one character is particularly better at fighting than the other. I'm just going to sip of tea and I'm going to read some more comments. I see Locris has joined, or did join at some point. Hey man, how's it going? Oh dear. Another thing to discuss would be a wizard duel. Now, I would love to see. I've often say this is the second time today, in fact, that I've said that Locris is particularly good with his spell descriptions, and I am going to try and make Locris do videos about spells. Or maybe we could work on something together. Locris, if you're still watching, maybe we could do something about that. That would be wicked. But if you imagine a wizard duel, that would be a battle of creativity. Who can come up with the best sort of spells and things? I've been in a sorcerer duel when I was playing in 3.5, and it was absolutely amazing, sort of dispelling spells and trying to predict what the other caster is going to do and stuff. And that was amazing. I'll have to go into that at some point as well. Marquis says, I'd have each duelist make a performance check before the fight. They can make it again as a bonus action. Yeah, absolutely. That's a little bit along the lines of what Scott was saying about Tyler's game, where there is sort of intimidation check as well. Like, you can try and psych someone into drawing first, perhaps, or like missing their shot, or missing with their spell, or not concentrating enough. In real life, there is a massive element to who wins the fight by with a psychological kind of edge. You know, if someone goes into a fight and they're not confident and they're not invested in it enough, then that could cost them. That could cost them significantly. So that's it's as much about a mind game as it is a fighting game. That's a very interesting way to look at it. Archie says you can see the type of duel where one person controls the fight in Empire Strikes Back between Luke and Vader. Absolutely. Arguably my favourite duel of all time, because of the stakes that are put in place, and because essentially Vader is toying with Luke. He is toying with him. He is, first of all, tries to lure him into a position where he can freeze him in carbonite, and when that fails, he cuts off his arm. And it is a conversation. That is the thing. Like, it is a way of, and if you're running it as a role-playing game, and your character for some reason was a Vader-esque character that was dictating the duel, you could say about how you are lazily batting this young pup's attacks aside, how you are then pressing the fight backwards, driving your foe up a gangway so they can't escape, locking them down. Obviously, some duels, like the Duel in Empire, isn't an organised fight. It isn't like, we're going to fight to resolve this. Luke is lured there, and Vader obviously takes full advantage of that. In fact, the most exciting duels, I would argue, are the ones that happen spontaneously. Where there could even be a fight going on around them. There could be like a standard party versus monsters or enemies fight, where one particular character singles out a villain, or the villain singles out a particular player character, and between them, on their initiative, they're having their own thing going on, which would be a really cool thing to sort of shine the spotlight on that particular moment, which is pretty great. But yeah, nice pull on the Empire. Any excuse, and I will go on about Star Wars because it's the best. Marky says, if they roll higher than enemy charisma, they have advantage on the next attack roll. See, that's great, man. Allowing that psychological and charisma-based edge to then allow them the advantage in the fight. That's really good stuff, man. Always thinking is Marky. He's always got his mind on the mechanics to augment the whole feel of the game. I love it. And he continues saying this allows for showmanship, etc., to come into play. Absolutely, and I think like you could even look into that with in terms of gladiatorial battles as well, like where you're not just there to win the fight, you're there to put on a show as well. I think gladiatorial fights should come into a different stream. Maybe I'll do that tomorrow. In fact, I will do that tomorrow. I'll talk about gladiatorial battles. I absolutely love fighting pits and gladiator arenas in role-playing games because that adds a completely different dynamic to a fight. I'll definitely talk about that tomorrow. She then says, dueling is totally a performance. Nice point. Deception is powerful in battle, and that is boiled down in a duel. It really is. Like, I told this story to Lloyd and Barker whilst we were doing some stuff for Lawkeepers before we did a session the next day. I'm sure a lot of people watching will be familiar. There's even a mechanical element to it in D&D. What feinting is, where you trick an opponent into thinking that you're going to be moving or lunging in a particular area and then change direction all of a sudden, and you're bluffing. It's like you bluffing in cards almost, or making a false move in chess, for example, to lure the opponent to drop their defences. I worked with a guy, I won't say his name, but he had an alias in the stage combat industry. He did choreography for the Lord of the Rings stage show. He's done a lot of stuff with the RSC, which is the Royal Shakespeare Company, because there's a lot of duels in Shakespeare. And he was running a workshop for me and a few friends, which was really great. Learned a lot from him. Master swordsman, and he was telling us about these folios that existed a long time ago. Western martial arts died out a long time ago because with the introduction of gunpowder, it wasn't needed as much, and it wasn't as well documented as Eastern martial arts, which is still, remembered in great detail and is used and augmented in, the modern day, karate, kung fu. Western martial arts, not so much. Like, there's a lot less about that, about how people would use a long sword, like how people would, use a rapier and a parrying dagger, that kind of thing. There's a lot less about it. And these people that this Lord Flame works with were getting really excited in the stage combat world because there had been discovered this new folio about this sworded lantern technique. And they were really excited. They had to wait an entire year before this thing was released for public viewing. Really excited. They're like, what on earth could this sword and lantern technique be? Used predominantly in Renaissance Italy. And they were waiting for a year for this thing to come out. And they were like, I wonder what it could be. What could it be? What could, how could this thing possibly augment a fight, a fighting experience? How could this possibly give someone an advantage? And it boiled down to the fact that it would be when someone is fighting at night, they would be holding a lantern in one hand and a blade in the other. And they're like, well, how could that possibly help someone? And then he turned around whilst he's telling the story, says, and you'll never guess what it was. You'd have your rapier in your primary hand, your lantern in your left hand, and you'd size up your opponent, you'd circle them, and then you'd go, light in your eyes, and then stab them. They would literally wait till it's dark, choose to fight your opponent then, shine a really bright light in their eyes, and then just stab them. It's not like an eloquent sort of parrying technique. It isn't like a feinting maneuver. No, it's literally blind them with a lantern, and then whilst they're confused, stab them in the gut. Which I absolutely love. But because it's so nasty and so dirty, like such a dirty move, but like it makes sense. Why would you try and put so much effort into flowery moves when you can be practical and end the fight in one albeit deceptive and dishonorable but effective move? Marquis says, a warlock duel. Who can buy more taboo from their patron? Yeah, that's great. I've never thought of that before, Marquis. That's awesome. Yeah, it's almost like you're having like a bargaining duel with the patron. But the great thing would be is that you're making this sort of devil's pact at the same time. So it's kind of like call my bluff, a game of chicken. Who's going to ask for more power? And then what is it going to cost them after the fight? What are they then going to have to do to repay the patron? You know, like. So if they say, like, I swear my soul for this, like the power to, end this battle, I send the soul. I will offer you 1,000 souls for the power to win this battle. Like, how much is it going to cost them? That's a really, really cool thing. Marquis then goes to say, and that's a good idea as well. I've just read. He continued by saying, make a charisma roll or sacrifice HP in a blood sacrifice. Who will raise the stakes higher? Dude, bloody. That's excellent. Person who is willing to give up the most of themselves wins the duel. There we go. Yeah, we're on the same way there, man. That's good stuff. So yeah, there's so many things that you can achieve just through just a one-on-one fight. It can be narratively explained. It can be interestingly dealt with by mechanics. It can be a conversation just between two people explaining what exactly they're doing to win the duel, and the cleverest technique can perhaps be the thing that wins the day. All interesting stuff. I'm going to stick around for a little bit. I'm going to have a sip of tea. I'm going to have a puff. Any further thoughts and duels, whacking into the comments, And for those watching, in fact, on YouTube, whacking in the comments below. Let me know about, your duels throughout your role-playing game history. What stakes were there? How did you resolve it? And we'll go into that. I'm just going to have a sip of tea. Oh my goodness me. As you can probably tell, I'm well into this sort of stuff. I love it. There's a really interesting system. I've not looked into it that much because I don't really know the system very well. The Fantasy Flight Star Wars. Lloyd mentioned it in his stream, and I'd love to see someone convert it for 5e. But essentially, is a number of checks that are made, a bit like what Marquis was saying earlier, actually, like regarding like your posture and like in terms of doing a lightsaber duel, which I think is pretty cool. I was in a lightsaber duel in the Star Wars campaign I was in, and I've ran an epic, my own Star Wars trilogy set in the Knights of the Old Republic era, where I had a number of duels because there's a number of Jedi and Sith at work in that time. In fact, that's one of the main reasons I wanted to run it in Old Republic, because there's a lot of Jedi and Sith, so you can explore a lot of Jedi and Sith stuff. I do love the Jedi and Sith mythologies. And of course the Grey Jedi, which maybe will be explored in a future film. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Marky says, I'm working on a 5e hack that is only Warlock with expanded class, etc. Warlock duels would be a big thing in there. Shit will be dope. And absolutely, guys, keep an eye out for all of the stuff coming from A Point of Inspiration. Those guys do some absolutely fantastic work. They are obviously very inspirational, but also I really appreciate how mechanically sound a lot of their stuff is that comes out. Like there's a lot of thought put into how they can make that fit into existing games and stuff, and I love it. Archie says, oh, my dog's barking. I have to go. But Archie says, I play almost exclusively Fantasy Flight Star Wars games. It is notoriously deadly. You probably want to play with house rules of dueling. There is an ability called Fated Duel. Oh, that sounds really interesting. The only Fantasy Flight game that I've played for was Lloyd. Once again, mentioning a lot of Lloyd today. Lloyd ran a two-parter, a Mandalorian game that you can see on his channel, YarlDM. Baptism by Fire, it was called, where we were Mandalorians. It was me, Matt Click, Michael Barker, and SRT Joker. It was good stuff, like really, really good stuff. And it was Mandalorians versus Jedi, which was pretty damn awesome. yeah. So yeah, well, I think I'll wrap it up there. Actually, I've really enjoyed doing some streams today. Like, it's been good fun, and it's always good to talk to you guys, to the community as well, to open up this kind of conversation. So if you've liked this, oh, we've got another comment. Oh no, I've frozen. No, I've not. I'm back. Ben Lashmar says L random interjection, as it's likely going to become a Fantasy Flight published RPG, but L5R's dueling is of a different flavour, but still gets over a certain. Oh man, I'm sorry. The comment got cut off again. I'm sorry. Every time, basically, the comment gets cut off. Ben, if you are still there, if you want to put the end of that comment in, because I can't, it won't let me open it or look into it any further than it cuts off after a while. Archie says, thanks for the video, sir. You're very welcome. Thank you very much for dropping by. It's always good when people are there for me to talk to, because otherwise the videos will be shorter and I'll have, less points of view. Like, I think it's good to have multiple points of view on this. Like, because it gets the mind going. Ben, right, okay, cool. I'll read your comment again, Ben. Thank you ever so much. Sorry, the comments, it's a real pain in the ass. Like, I think I need to do something on my phone. Maybe it needs an update, I don't know. Ben says, L random interjection, as it is likely going to become a Fantasy Flight published RPG, but L5R's dueling is of a certain flavour, but still gets over a certain type of imagery. Perfect. Yeah, like Legend of the Fire Rings, obviously, I think there's quite a lot of emphasis on that. I've never played L5R, but maybe one day in the future. Maybe when it comes out as Fantasy Flight, maybe I'll actually try and learn the system, because I'm so happy that there was like a dice roller out for that, which obviously no longer exists on Google Hangouts. But at the time, I'm glad it existed, because I could just show the others like what I got. Like, I'd roll a dice, and each time I'm like, "What does that mean? Just tell me how I describe this. Like, did I win? Did I lose? What happened?" I should have probably read the rules a bit more. But it just goes to show that rules is only the framework. All you need really is a creative mind and willingness to take part and have fun. So, ladies and gents, thank you ever so much for watching. If you've liked this video, why not give it a like? If you'd like to see more like it, then give me a subscribe, or not. We're all friends here, or are we? Thanks a lot, and I hope that all of your performances are up to standard. Finish.